For years, their love story was also their job. Their fights funded their life. What happens when the cameras turn off? The checks stop, and all that's left is reality. We've watched Jenny and Sumit's journey for what feels like an eternity, a decade-long saga of forbidden love, catfishing, secret marriages, angry parents, and endless astrological consultations. It was the gift that kept on giving for TLC, a reliable source of drama that viewers just couldn't quit. But every story has an ending. And for Jenny and Sumit, that ending wasn't a fairy tale. It was a termination letter. The cameras have packed up and gone home, the producer's number goes straight to voicemail, and the direct deposits have stopped. The 90-day Fiance machine has moved on, and it has left them behind in the dust. And now, the real story begins, the one you were never meant to see. If you think you know Jenny and Sumit, you need to think again. And you absolutely must be subscribed to this channel with notifications on, because the bombshells we are about to drop are just the beginning of a story that is unraveling in real time. Hit that like button because it helps us get these exclusive reports out there. This isn't a recap. This is a reckoning. Let's be honest with ourselves for a moment. The entire foundation of Jenny and Sumit's relationship, as we have seen it, has been external conflict. From the very beginning, it was Sumit versus the truth, lying about his identity as Michael Jones. Then it was Sumit versus his secret wife and the crushing divorce proceedings that drained his family's savings. And for the longest, most grueling stretch, it was Sumit and Jenny versus his parents, Sana and Anil. That conflict was the engine of their storyline. It was the narrative fuel that powered season after season of The Other Way. Every tearful confrontation with Sana, every tense negotiation with Anil, every dramatic threat of disownment wasn't just a personal crisis. It was content, it was job security. Their family's anguish was their primary product, and they sold it to TLC for a steady paycheck. We watched Sana threaten to take her own life. We watched her move into their home to teach Jenny how to be a good Indian wife. We watched the endless circular arguments that always ended in a stalemate. And through it all, Jenny and Sumit remained a united front against this external force. Their love was defined by what it was fighting against. It was them against the world, or at least against Sumit's family, but a fundamental law of storytelling and of reality television is that a story must progress. A conflict must either be resolved or escalate until it breaks. For Jenny and Sumit, it was resolved. Against all odds, after a decade of resistance, Sana and Anil finally, begrudgingly accepted the marriage. The astrologer gave his blessing. The family came together. And in that moment of tearful, hard-won acceptance, Sumit and Jenny signed their own pink slip. They just didn't know it yet. A bombshell report, coming from an inside source deep within Sharp Entertainment, the production company behind the franchise, has confirmed what many of us have suspected. The source, who must remain anonymous to protect their career, claims that Jenny and Sumit have been officially and permanently dropped from the 90-Day Fiancé franchise. The reason? It's as brutal and unsentimental as a corporate memo. Their storyline is, and I quote, resolved and therefore unmarketable. The source went on to explain that the network's data analytics showed a significant drop-off in viewer engagement projections for any future segments featuring the couple. The central conflict was gone. Sana was no longer the villain. The star-crossed lovers were no longer star-crossed. They were just a married couple. And a boring one at that. What are we supposed to film? The source reportedly said during a production meeting. Them watching TV, Jenny complaining about the heat, Sumit cooking. There's no drama left. The cash cow has run dry. This is the cold, hard calculus of reality television. You are not a person. You are a product. Your life is not your own. It is a narrative arc. And when that arc concludes, so does your career. For years, Sumit and Jenny existed in a strange, artificial bubble, a world where their income was directly tied to the level of dysfunction in their lives. The more they fought with his parents, the more screen time they got. The more screen time they got, the bigger their paycheck. They were incentivized to live in a state of perpetual crisis. This arrangement, while emotionally taxing, provided them with a lifestyle that was completely detached from their real-world economic prospects. Let's break down the numbers, because this is where the fairy tale dissolves into a financial nightmare. A seasoned forensic accountant who specializes in reality television earnings has provided us with a conservative analysis of their situation, and the findings are chilling. Based on their tenure and popularity, it's estimated that in their later seasons, Jenny and Sumit were earning between $2,000 and $2,500 per episode each. For a standard 12-episode season, That's a combined income of up to 60,000. Add to that the tell-all specials, which can command a bonus of up to 5,000 each, and appearances on spin-offs like Pillow Talk, which provides a steady, albeit smaller, stream of income. Over the course of a year with a new season and a few spin-off appearances, they could have been clearing close to six figures, tax-free in Jenny's case as it's foreign earned income, and significantly taxed for Sumit. This is a staggering amount of money, especially when you consider the cost of living in their area of India. It allowed them to live in a comfortable, modern apartment, run the air conditioning, eat out, and travel all without either of them having to hold down a traditional 9-to-5 job. Their job was being themselves on camera, but that job is gone. The six-figure income has been reduced to zero, overnight. And what's left? What is their financial safety net now that the TLC circus has left town? The answer is as shocking as it is bleak. Jenny's Social Security benefits. That's it. That is their sole, entire, and total income. The average Social Security payment for a retiree in the United States is roughly $1,600 per month. Let's be generous and say Jenny, due to her work history, receives closer to $1,800 a month. Converted to Indian rupees, that's approximately 150,000 rupees. On the surface, to some, that might sound like a manageable amount. But this is where the illusion of their television lifestyle shatters. Their rent for that modern, air-conditioned apartment in a decent neighborhood near Delhi is likely in the range of 30,000 to 40,000 rupees. Electricity, especially with the AC running to combat the oppressive Indian heat that Jenny often complained about, could easily be another 10,000 rupees. Add in groceries, internet, transportation, healthcare, and the occasional small luxury they've grown accustomed to, and that 150,000 rupees evaporates with terrifying speed. There's nothing left for savings, nothing for emergencies, nothing for the future. They are living, quite literally, pension check to pension check. The financial cushion that TLC provided, the buffer that allowed them to ignore the precariousness of their situation, is gone. They are now living the life that a 60-something American retiree and her unemployed 30-something husband would actually live in India, and it is a far cry from the life they've been leading for the past several years. This catastrophic financial downturn forms the basis of a theory we have been developing, a theory that insiders have been whispering about for months. The theory is this: the love between Jenny and Sumit, nurtured in the artificial greenhouse of reality television and funded by a network, cannot survive the harsh, arid climate of genuine, grinding financial hardship. Their relationship was forged in the crucible of familial conflict, a battle against an external enemy. They were a team. But what happens when the enemy is no longer a person you can argue with? What happens when the enemy is the silent dread of an overdue utility bill? What happens when the conflict isn't about cultural acceptance, but about the humiliating reality that you cannot afford to fix a broken appliance? The theory posits that without the financial security and shared purpose of the show, the fundamental, unaddressed cracks in their foundation would begin to show. The 30-year age gap, the cultural chasms, Sumit's complete lack of a career path, Jenny's isolation from her family and home country. These were all issues that could be smoothed over, ignored, or even weaponized for a dramatic storyline when the checks were clearing. But in the stark, unforgiving light of poverty, these are not plot points. They are relationship-ending realities. For a while, this was just a theory, a compelling, logical, but unproven piece of speculation. We could analyze the numbers, we could read between the lines of their social media posts, but we had no definitive proof. Until now. What we are about to share with you is the piece of evidence that turns this entire story on its head. It's the kind of raw, unfiltered moment that producers dream of capturing, but this one happened far away from any TLC cameras. We have obtained a leaked audio recording, a hot mic moment, not from a television set, but from a private, desperate phone call. The source of this audio is, once again, confidential, but we have verified its authenticity. The voice on the recording is unmistakably Sumit Singh. The tone is not the calm, placating Sumit we often see on television, trying to mediate between his wife and his mother. This is the sound of a man in the throes of a full-blown panic attack. The audio is slightly distorted, filled with static and the sound of his own ragged breathing, but his words are terrifyingly clear. We're going to play you the most crucial segment of that call. He is speaking in a frantic mix of English and Hindi, his voice cracking with sheer terror. The money is gone. It's all gone. They said the story is over. Over. What does that mean? I can't get a real job that pays this much. I can't. I have nothing. I have no skills. I worked in a call center 10 years ago. Who will hire me for this kind of money? No one. We are ruined. We are completely, totally ruined. Jenny doesn't understand the gravity of it. She keeps talking about her social security. It's nothing. It's gone in 2 weeks. What have I done? What have I done with my life? I gave up everything. My family and my future for a TV show, and now the show is gone. It's all gone. Let that sink in. This isn't a performance for the cameras. This is the sound of a man's entire world collapsing in on him in real time. This is the moment the reality check, which had been deferred for years by television money, finally came due. And it is devastating. Every word is a confession of the deep, dark fears that must have been lurking beneath the surface for years. I can't get a real job that pays this much. In that one sentence, Sumit admits the truth. His role as a reality TV star was not a stepping stone to something greater. It was a golden cage. It paid him more than he could ever hope to make in any legitimate profession available to him in India, effectively trapping him in the role of Jenny's foreign husband. He knows he doesn't have the qualifications or experience to re-enter the workforce at a level that could sustain their lifestyle. The years he spent filming, arguing, and placating were years he wasn't building a career, gaining experience, or developing marketable skills. He traded a real future for a temporary high-paying gig, and the gig just expired. What have I done with my life? This is the existential horror at the heart of his panic. He is a man in his mid-30s, an age where his peers are established in their careers, building families, and securing their financial futures. What has he done? He defied his family, alienated himself from his culture's traditional path, and dedicated the prime years of his life to a relationship that was also his source of employment. He bet everything on the longevity of his own reality TV storyline, and he lost. The love story has now been revealed for what it has become, a terrifying financial trap. He is now completely, utterly dependent on the pension of a foreign woman 30 years his senior, in a country where his own prospects are dismally low. The power dynamic, which was always complex, has now been stripped down to its bare, brutal economic reality. He is the dependent, she is the provider, and the provision is not enough. It's a pressure cooker of resentment, fear, and regret, and it is about to explode. The central conflict of their lives has shifted overnight, in the most profound way imaginable. For a decade, the enemy was Sahna. The drama was about gaining her acceptance, about proving that their love was real and could conquer all. They won that battle. But their victory was Pyrrhic, because the new enemy isn't a disapproving mother-in-law you can argue with. The new enemy is the electricity bill. It's the landlord. It's the rising price of cooking oil. It is the silent, relentless, soul-crushing anxiety of being broke. How does a relationship built on grand, romantic gestures and dramatic defiance survive the mundane, ugly reality of financial desperation? How does Jenny, who left her country for a life of love and adventure, cope with the fact that she is now the sole breadwinner, supporting a panicked, unemployed husband on a fixed income that was meant to support only her in her golden years? She came to India to be a wife, not a financial lifeline for a man who is now realizing the catastrophic cost of his own life choices. And how does Sumit, a man from a patriarchal culture where the husband is expected to be the provider, reconcile his identity with the humiliating reality of his situation? Every rupee he spends is Jenny's. Every meal he eats is paid for by her social security. The shame and emasculation he must feel are unimaginable. This isn't a storyline that can be neatly resolved in a 45-minute episode. This is a slow-motion disaster, a marriage being ground down by the abrasive reality of poverty. The audio leak of Sumit's panic attack isn't just a piece of gossip, it is a preview of the private hell they are now living in. The fights are no longer about whether to visit his parents, they are about whether they can afford to take a rickshaw to the market or if they have to walk. The tension is no longer about cultural misunderstandings. It is the thick, suffocating tension of knowing there is more month than money. This is the post-TLC apocalypse. It's the untold story of what happens when the cameras leave and the manufactured reality gives way to the real one. For years, we debated whether their love was real. Now we are forced to ask a much harsher, more relevant question. Was their love strong enough to be poor? Because they are about to find out. The love story has become a survival story. The romantic lead has become a man trapped by his choices, and the adventurous heroine has become a pensioner watching her nest egg dwindle. This is the ultimate test, and it's one that will play out not in front of a camera crew, but in the quiet, desperate moments of their new, untelevised life. Think about the psychological shift that has to occur. For years, any problem they had could, in a way, be monetized. An argument with Sana wasn't just a fight, it was a key scene for an upcoming episode. Jenny feeling isolated and homesick? That's a dramatic confession. Sumit feeling torn between his wife and his family? That's the central theme of a whole season. Their life was a feedback loop where personal turmoil was rewarded with professional stability. Now that entire system has been inverted. Their problems are just problems. They are liabilities, not assets. A fight about money doesn't lead to a bigger paycheck. It just leads to more bitterness and resentment. Jenny's fears about her financial security are not a compelling narrative for an audience. They are a private, terrifying reality that keeps her awake at night. Sumit's career anxiety isn't a character arc. It's a deep personal failing that he has to confront every single day when he wakes up with nothing to do and no way to contribute. Let's delve deeper into Sumit's perspective, as revealed by that horrifying audio leak. I have no skills. This is a profoundly tragic admission. What he means is that he has no marketable skills in the conventional Indian job market. His expertise, developed over the last decade, is in being Sumit from 90 Day Fiance. His skill set includes managing a long-distance relationship, navigating intense family drama on camera, giving confessional interviews, and understanding the production schedule of a reality television show. Where does that go on a resume? How do you translate survived a decade of filming with TLC into a tangible qualification for a project manager position or a sales role? The call center job he mentioned is a crucial detail. That was his past, a life he left behind for the promise of television fame and an American wife. Call centers in India are high-pressure, relatively low-paying jobs. To go back to that now would not only be a massive step down in income, but also a humiliating public failure. The man who was on television screens across the world, now back in a cubicle with a headset on, dealing with angry customers for a fraction of what he used to make. It's a psychological blow that many would not be able to recover from. He is, in a very real sense, an obsolete product. He was trained for a job that no longer exists, and he is now facing a marketplace that has no place for him. And what about Jenny? Imagine her position. She is in her 60s, in a country that is not her own, thousands of miles away from her children and grandchildren. Her entire support system is one person, Sumit. And that person is, as the audio proves, falling apart. The man who is supposed to be her partner, her rock in this new life, is now an anchor of financial anxiety. She can no longer look at him and see just the man she loves. She must also see him as a financial dependent, a source of stress, a problem to be solved. Every time he seems listless or depressed, she won't just feel empathy. She'll feel the cold grip of fear, wondering, how are we going to survive if he can't pull himself together? The dream of a peaceful retirement in India, filled with love and exploration, has been replaced by the nightmare of being a caregiver to a man in the midst of a life-altering crisis, all while her own limited funds drain away. She's trapped. Going back to America isn't a simple option. She sold her home. Her life is in India. Starting over in the United States on just Social Security is incredibly difficult. She is as much a prisoner of their new circumstances as he is. They are locked together in this financial death spiral, a reality that is far more dramatic and terrifying than anything TLC ever aired. The show presented their challenges as romantic obstacles. The reality is that their challenges are now existential. It's not about winning a mother's approval anymore. It's about keeping the lights on. It's about having enough food to eat. The stakes have been raised from emotional happiness to basic fundamental survival. And that is a pressure that breaks even the strongest of bonds. The foundation of their life was a television show, and that foundation has been ripped out from under them, leaving them in a free fall with no safety net in sight. The reckoning has arrived. The sound of that phone call, that raw, unfiltered panic is more than just a leak. It's an autopsy report on a dream. The dream that love conquers all. The dream that their unique televised story would somehow insulate them from the mundane, brutal realities of life. That audio reveals the truth that was always hiding in plain sight. Their relationship wasn't just funded by TLC, it was defined by it. The entire structure of their partnership was built around the show. Sumit's role was main character. Jenny's role was main character's foreign love interest. His parents were the antagonists. Their life was a series of plot points. Now that the show has been canceled, they have been canceled along with it. Sumit isn't just unemployed. His very identity has been rendered obsolete. And the psychological devastation of that is something we need to explore in detail, because it's the invisible poison now seeping into every corner of their marriage. Consider the man in that recording versus the man we watched for years. The Sumit on our screens was a master of de-escalation. He was perpetually calm, patient, and soft-spoken, even in the face of his mother's most hysterical outbursts. He was the perpetual mediator, the emotional shock absorber of the family. His entire persona was one of gentle, reassuring stoicism. But that calmness was a performance. It was a necessary survival tactic for navigating the constant emotional warfare that was his life on camera. More than that, it was a luxury afforded to him by his financial security. It's easy to be patient when you know a paycheck is coming regardless of the outcome of the fight. It's easy to be the calm center of the storm when the storm itself is generating your income. But the man on that phone call is not calm. He is a man stripped bare of his persona, his mask torn away by sheer terror. That panic attack is the sound of his true self, the self that has been suppressed for a decade, finally breaking through. It's the voice of a man who knows he is in over his head, who has just woken up in the middle of the ocean after the cruise ship has sailed away without him. This new reality forces us to re-examine the very nature of his commitment. For years, the narrative was that Sumit sacrificed everything for Jenny. He sacrificed his family's approval, his standing in society, and his first marriage. It was painted as the ultimate romantic gesture. But what if it wasn't a sacrifice as much as it was a trade? He traded the uncertain, difficult path of a normal life, building a career, appeasing his parents, following a traditional route, for a much more exciting and far more lucrative alternative. He became a television star. He got an American partner, which carries a certain cachet. He got a life free from the 9-to-5 grind, a life of relative leisure funded by his own family drama. It was a gamble, and for a while, it paid off handsomely. But now that the gamble has failed, the trade looks catastrophic. He didn't just sacrifice his family's approval, he sacrificed his own future. He sacrificed the prime decade of his working life, a period when his peers were gaining experience, promotions, and building financial stability. He is now in his mid-30s with the resume of a 22-year-old. His panic isn't just about the lack of money, it's about the horrifying realization of wasted time. The years are gone, and he has nothing tangible to show for them except a collection of memories from a TV show and a fading public profile. This creates a new and toxic dynamic within their home. The resentment, which was previously directed outwards towards his parents, now has nowhere to go but inwards, towards himself and inevitably toward Jenny. It is a psychological certainty. When he looks at her now, can he see only the woman he loves, or does he also see the physical embodiment of the choice that has led to his ruin? Does he see the reason he is unskilled, unemployed, and filled with a terror so profound he can barely breathe? He may never say it aloud, but that undercurrent of, "This is my life because of you," is a poison that can corrode even the strongest love. Every time she has to hand him money for something, every time he has to ask permission to spend from her limited Social Security fund, it will be another small cut, another drop of that poison. He, a man from a culture that prides itself on male providership, is now living as a dependent. The shame of that day after day is a heavy burden. It fosters depression, it breeds resentment, it kills intimacy. The man Jenny fell in love with, the brave, defiant man who stood up to his family for her, is gone. In his place is a man consumed by fear and regret, a shadow of his former self. And what about Jenny's side of this nightmare? We must not underestimate the profound isolation she is now experiencing. Her dream has curdled. She moved to India for a partnership, for a shared life. Instead, she has become a reluctant caretaker. She is now managing not just their dwindling finances, but also the complete psychological collapse of her husband. Imagine the conversations they must be having away from the cameras, the reassurances she must have to give, day in and day out, all while her own terror is mounting. She has to be the strong one, the stable one, because if she falls apart, the whole fragile structure collapses. She is essentially a single mother in a foreign country, with her 30-something husband as her dependent child. She can't share her deepest fears with him because he is the source of them. She can't vent her frustrations to him because he is already drowning in his own. Who can she talk to? Her family is thousands of miles and a dozen time zones away. Can she really call her kids and say, "By the way, the TV money is gone. Sumit is having a breakdown, and I'm terrified we're going to be destitute"? The shame and the worry would be overwhelming. So she is alone, truly and completely alone, in a house filled with the suffocating silence of financial anxiety. Their social media presence has become a fascinating, if tragic, case study in this new reality. If you look closely, you can see the cracks in the facade. The posts are still there. The smiling selfies, the pictures of food, the holiday greetings. But there's a new frantic energy to them. A performative happiness that feels just a little too bright, a little too forced. The captions are filled with platitudes about love and strength, but they read less like genuine sentiments and more like someone trying to convince themselves. And then there are the more direct, if subtle, clues. An increase in sponsored posts for products that feel off-brand. A new, more aggressive promotion of their Cameo accounts, with prices that fluctuate. These are not the actions of a couple enjoying a comfortable life. These are the early signs of a scramble for cash. They are trying to monetize their fading celebrity, squeezing every last drop out of their 15 minutes of fame before it evaporates completely. Each smiling Cameo video they record for a fan is a testament to their desperation. They are selling fragments of their old televised life to fund their new impoverished one. It's a digital panhandling that is as heartbreaking as it is necessary for their survival. This financial desperation will inevitably change the very texture of their daily arguments. Healthy couples argue about money, but what Jenny and Sumit are facing is not a normal financial disagreement. It's a financial crisis. The arguments are no longer theoretical or distant. They are immediate and visceral. The fight is no longer about whether Sumit should get a job in the abstract. It's about why he spent 100 rupees on a snack when they needed that money for milk. The conflict is no longer about the cultural differences in how families operate. It's about the humiliating, soul-crushing conversation of whether they can afford to run the air conditioner for an extra hour while sweat drips down their faces in the oppressive Delhi heat. These are the kinds of arguments that don't end with a hug and a makeup scene for the cameras. These are the arguments that leave a residue of bitterness and resentment that builds up over time, like plaque, until it hardens the heart. The 30-year age gap, once a quirky talking point for the show, is now the central, terrifying vulnerability of their relationship. It is no longer a number. It is the reason their financial solvency rests entirely on a single modest pension check. Jenny's age is their only lifeline, and Sumit's relative youth is their biggest liability. And into this pressure cooker of fear and resentment, we must reintroduce the most volatile element of all, Sumit's parents, Sana and Anil. Their acceptance of the marriage was, let's be honest, reluctant at best. It was an exhausted surrender, not a joyful embrace. They agreed to the union because Sumit was on television. He seemed happy, and he was financially independent of them. It was a situation they couldn't control, so they adapted. But what happens now? What happens when their son, their only son, comes to them, hat in hand, admitting that the television dream is over, the money is gone, and he is completely dependent on his foreign pensioner wife? The I told you so moment would be cataclysmic. It would be the validation of every single fear and objection Sana has had for the past decade. She didn't want her son to marry Jenny not just because of the age difference, but because she saw it as a dead-end path, a path that would lead him away from a traditional, stable life. And now, in her eyes, she would be proven right in the most devastating way possible. Her son has no career, he has no prospects. He has, in her view, squandered his life. The new conflict, the one that will play out in the dark, away from any cameras, is whether Sumit will be forced to go to his parents for a bailout. The humiliation for him would be absolute. He would have to crawl back, admit his failure, and essentially beg for their help. And in doing so, he would surrender every last shred of autonomy he has ever fought for. He would no longer be Sumit, the defiant husband who chose love over tradition. He would be Sumit, the failed son who came home because his life plan imploded. Sana and Anil would once again have complete control over him, and by extension, over Jenny. Can you imagine the conditions they might impose? They could demand he get a real job, no matter how menial. They could demand he spend more time with them, reintegrating into the family life he abandoned. They could, and likely would, make Jenny's life a living hell, blaming her for their son's downfall. The power dynamic would be completely inverted. Sana would no longer be the disapproving mother-in-law they had to manage. She would be their landlady, their banker, their commanding officer. This is a storyline far more compelling and real than anything TLC ever produced. The enemy is no longer at the gates. The enemy is now the only one who can offer them a lifeline. And the price of that lifeline might be their marriage itself. This leaves them with a terrifyingly small number of options for the future, each one more fraught than the last. Option 1, the digital grind. They can go all in on being social media influencers. Start a YouTube channel, double down on Instagram, create a Patreon. But this is a brutal, oversaturated market. Their fame is tied to a show they are no longer on. With each passing month, their relevance fades. They would be competing with younger, more energetic, and currently on TV couples. It would become a full-time job of creating content, engaging with fans, and chasing algorithm trends, all for a potentially meager and unreliable income. The pressure to perform happiness online while their private life is crumbling would be immense. It's a short-term fix that could lead to an even bigger burnout. Option 2, the American Gambit. Jenny could try to bring Sumit to the United States, but this is a fantasy built on quicksand. The K-1 visa process they originally abandoned, or a spousal visa, is incredibly expensive, requiring thousands of dollars in legal fees and application costs, money they simply do not have. Furthermore, Jenny would have to prove she can financially support him, which is nearly impossible on a fixed Social Security income. They are financially trapped in India by the very immigration laws of the country Jenny calls home. And even if they could overcome the financial and legal hurdles, what would Sumit do in America? With no American work experience and a skill set tailored to Indian call centers and reality TV, he would be at an even greater disadvantage in the American job market. He would be just as dependent on Jenny, if not more so, and completely isolated from what little support system he has left in India. It's a frying pan into the fire scenario. Option 3, the Great Humbling. This is the only realistic, albeit the most painful path. They accept their new reality, they give up the modern apartment, they move to a much smaller, much cheaper place in a less desirable neighborhood. They sell whatever valuables they have. They cut their expenses to the absolute bone. No more restaurants, no more unnecessary travel, no more AC unless it's a medical necessity. And Sumit has to take any job he can get. A call center, a delivery driver, a clerk in a shop, a job that pays a fraction of what he used to make, a job that he will likely see as beneath him, but a job that contributes something, anything, to their household income. This path requires a complete and total annihilation of the ego. It requires them to rebuild their relationship on a new foundation, not of romance and drama, but of shared sacrifice and mutual survival. The question is, can they do it? Can a love story that was born and raised in the spotlight survive in the dim, flickering light of poverty? Was their bond ever truly about each other, or was it about the shared experience of being on television? This is the precipice on which they now stand. The fame is a ghost, the money is a memory, and the bills are very, very real. The greatest drama of their lives is not the one we watched for years. It's the one that is happening right now, in the suffocating silence of their apartment after the producers have stopped calling. The reality checks from TLC have stopped, and the reality check of life has just been delivered. And it is a bill that may cost them everything. We will be watching every move, analyzing every clue, because the financial fallout is just the beginning. The emotional and relational apocalypse is still to come. What do you think their next move should be? Is there a path forward for them, or is this the end of the line? Let us know in the comments, and make sure you are subscribed, because this is the story that TLC doesn't want you to see, and it is far from over.